The wedding music stopped when a little girl screamed, "Daddy, why are all those helicopters coming for you?" Every face turned toward the tall man standing at the altar in a borrowed gray suit. Daniel Carter looked at the sky through the open doors of the small lakeside chapel. His face went pale. Outside, 3 black helicopters descended over the distant field. Then a line of luxury SUVs rolled down the narrow country road. Emma Brooks stood across from him in her simple white dress, her hands still holding his. She had agreed to marry a poor single dad. So why were dozens of people suddenly rushing toward the chapel? And why did one of them fall to his knees and say, "Mr. Carter, thank God we found you"? Daniel closed his eyes. For the first time since Emma had known him, he looked afraid. But the truth was far more complicated than she could have imagined. 6 months earlier, Emma had met Daniel at a 24-hour laundromat. It was nearly midnight. Rain tapped against the windows, and Emma was folding uniforms from her job at a small veterinary clinic. Across the room, a little girl sat asleep on a plastic chair, wrapped in a faded yellow blanket. Daniel was trying to fix the broken dryer with a screwdriver. Emma watched him struggle. "You work here?" she finally asked. Daniel laughed quietly. "No, I just can't afford to lose another $20. That was Daniel. He repaired everything himself. His old truck, his daughter's bicycle, the leaking sink in his tiny rental house. At 39, he worked mornings doing maintenance at a community center and evenings delivering groceries. He never complained, although exhaustion lived beneath his eyes. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily, had lost her mother when she was 3. Emma had lost her own father years earlier and knew something about empty chairs at family tables. Maybe that was why she understood Daniel's silence. Or maybe it was the way Lily looked at him, like he was the whole world. Their relationship grew slowly. No expensive dinners. No vacations. Daniel took Emma to a free outdoor movie and brought popcorn from home. On another night, he cooked spaghetti while Lily decorated the kitchen with handmade paper flowers. Emma had dated successful men before. One had bought her diamonds, but never listened. Another had promised her a future while secretly planning one without her. Daniel had almost nothing. But when Emma got sick with the flu, he drove 30 minutes after midnight just to leave soup on her porch. He didn't knock. He didn't want to wake her. That small act stayed with her. So when Daniel proposed beside the lake where Lily liked feeding ducks, Emma didn't care that the ring was simple. She said yes before he finished asking. But Daniel's reaction was strange. He held her tighter than usual and whispered, "You need to know, marrying me won't be easy." Emma smiled. "I'm not marrying your bank account." Daniel looked away. That should have been her first clue. 3 weeks before the wedding, an unexpected obstacle appeared. Emma's older brother, Marcus, came to dinner. Marcus was a financial advisor, polished and ambitious, the kind of man who judged a restaurant by the wine list. He studied Daniel's worn boots beneath the table. "So," Marcus said, "2 jobs, 1 child, no savings worth mentioning. How exactly are you planning to support my sister?" The room went quiet. Emma waited for Daniel to defend himself. He didn't. He simply placed his fork down. "I'm doing everything I can." Marcus leaned back. "That's not really an answer." Daniel looked at Lily, who was drawing at the other end of the table. Then he said softly, "It's the only honest one I have." Emma threw Marcus out. But later that night, she found Daniel sitting alone on the porch. His hands were shaking. She had never seen him like that. "I should have said something sooner," he murmured. "About what?" Daniel stared into the darkness. Then Lily ran outside holding her drawing. "Daddy, look, it's our new family." The moment disappeared. Daniel smiled, and whatever he had been about to confess stayed buried. A week later, Emma discovered something even stranger. She was picking Lily up from school when a black sedan stopped across the street. A man in an expensive suit stepped out. He looked toward Daniel's house. Then he saw Emma watching. The man immediately got back into the car and drove away. Emma told Daniel. His expression changed. "Did you see the license plate?" "No." Daniel became unusually quiet. That night, Emma searched his name online. Daniel Carter. Thousands of results appeared. But not about him. About another Daniel Carter. Daniel Carter, founder of Carter Global Holdings. A billionaire investor who had disappeared from public life 4 years earlier after the death of his wife. The photographs were old, but Emma's breath caught. Same eyes. Same scar above the eyebrow. Same face. She confronted Daniel the next morning. He stood in the kitchen, frozen. "Tell me I'm wrong." For several seconds, only the refrigerator hummed. Then Daniel said, "You're not." Emma felt the floor disappear beneath her. "You lied to me. I left. That's not the same thing." "No," he said. "It's worse." Daniel finally told her. For years earlier, his wife, Claire, had died in a car accident while Daniel was on a business trip. At the time, his company was expanding across the world. Every day meant meetings, flights, investors, money. He had told himself he was building security for his family. Then, in one phone call, he learned that money couldn't bring someone home. Daniel stepped away from everything. But instead of announcing his grief, he disappeared. He handed daily control to a board and created a private arrangement that allowed the company to continue without him. He wanted Lily to grow up with a father, not a name on magazine covers. So he rented a small house under his middle name, worked ordinary jobs, and tried to learn how to be useful again. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "But why hide it from me?" Daniel swallowed. "Because everyone who knew I was rich looked at me differently. And now I'm terrified you will too." Emma didn't answer. She left. For 2 days, Daniel heard nothing. Lily kept asking if Emma was coming back. Daniel couldn't blame her for leaving. He had built their love on incomplete truth. And that was still a kind of lie. Then came the bigger blow. Marcus called Emma. He had investigated Daniel after hearing about the Billionaire connection. He discovered that Carter Global was facing a major crisis. Several board members wanted Daniel declared incapable of returning after years away. They were trying to force him out permanently. The helicopters and SUVs weren't coming to celebrate Daniel. They were searching for him. A board meeting had been called. If Daniel didn't appear, he could lose control of the company his late father had built. Emma suddenly understood why Daniel had looked frightened. Not because people were discovering his wealth, because the life he had escaped was coming back for him. On the morning of the wedding, Emma stood in the chapel wearing white. Everyone assumed she was waiting for Daniel. She was actually waiting for herself to decide. Then Lily approached her. The little girl held something tightly in her hand. "My daddy made this for you." It was not jewelry. It was a folded piece of paper. Inside was a crude drawing. Emma, Daniel, Lily, and a tiny yellow house. Above them, Lily had written, "We don't need a big house if we have each other." Emma began to cry, not because Daniel was the richest man alive, but because for months, she had watched him choose a life that gave his daughter something money could never buy: time. She realized his secret had hurt her, but his reason for leaving had never been greed. It had been regret, and regret could either destroy a person or teach them how to live differently. Emma walked toward the altar. Daniel looked up. She took his hands. No more secrets. His eyes filled with tears. No more. Then the helicopters came. The cars arrived, and the entire world Daniel had left behind came rushing toward the little chapel. One of the executives begged him to come immediately. Daniel looked at Emma, then at Lily, then back at the executive. After the ceremony, the man stared at him. "Sir, the board meeting." Daniel smiled for the first time that day. "They can wait 20 minutes. And they did, because the richest man alive had finally learned what his fortune could never purchase. You can always earn more money. You can rebuild a company. You can recover from failure. But the people who love you will never remember how much you owned. They will remember whether you were there when it mattered.